Kenny from Cars.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to another Kenny Cars and Coffee or Cars and Coffee with Kenny. Anybody's been here for a while know the story. But today, I thought that'd be a good way to start. When we talk about Roy's car I put together, that was, we ride on the dyno. There's a shop south of here that we use for dyno. And we got it kind of all tuned up for the season and he's ready to go. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But some other things this morning, this is gonna be a great show. If you're heading to track, we're gonna talk about a little bit about getting ready for the track, things you can do. A little something on how you can actually adjust your car at the track. And that Roy's car is the Daytona Prototype engine. It would be considered, but what's in the car is a Series 1. And then Transform Your Driving Experience is coming up April, it's not on this front sheet, April 6th to 8th. It will be coming up 3 days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and there'll probably be about an hour and a half each evening. We did it like 5 days before an hour, but I think I want to compact it a little bit. Let's see what else have we got. Of course, just questions. Send in your questions. I'll do the best I can to answer them. If I know the answer, I'll tell you. If not, I'll tell you that as well. So let's see. Okay, the track, Roy's car, driving experience, questions. Again, Dan Gurney's still up there. We'll be there for the rest of the month, and I'll dig into my archives and see if I can't come up with another cool piece of my automotive art. So I think let's kind of jump into questions because there's some really, really good questions. Remember, all the questions come from the Speed Therapy Society. If you're not a member and like cars, I strongly recommend you join the society because a lot of cool things happen. They get privy to some things that the outside world don't know about. Like they got to see the new suspension before the rest of the world. But anyway, if you got a question, send it in. So this is not a question. It's a question, but it's not a question. It's not a new. This is from Will, not a new subject. He's been crazy at work. Which episode did I cover the tire size for him? Will, that was episode 43. We went back into the research, and episode 43 is where the tire information is for you. I'm going to go to Todd last because that's kind of a big question. Down here at Joe Johnson's always got good questions. And this one, I don't think I can answer. He said, should GT350s have oil balance lines on the back of the engine due to their high RPM capability? I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know much about it. I know like on the old Marauders, we had to do a balance line for water from one head to the other because it didn't cool very well. But I'm just not familiar with that. Is anybody out there has heard anything? Let us know. I'd like to know. But it kind of brings up a subject. And well, two things. Joe put on a new radiator. I was just curious how your water temperature was on your last outing with the new triple pass radiator. But it's kind of like when you talk about things like oil balance lines. Anytime I do anything to the car, I'm looking for a specific outcome to get beyond like a problem. And if there's a problem, and certainly there needs to be a solution, but I just don't know it. What I'm getting to is there's a lot of people just they hear something and just go out and change something, whether they need it or not. Keep things simple, guys. That's all my life. I've gone from doing things really complex to, just paring it down and being simple. If I make a change, it's because I'm looking for a specific outcome. Not just to make a change. So that's something to keep in your mind. That's something we go over in the Speed Therapy Academy, which is coming up too, it's pretty cool. Let's see, Eric, how about transmissions, the Liberty 4-speed versus a Muncie 4-speed in the rear end gear? Not sure what the rear end gear question is about, but I can tell you that I have not actually worked with a Muncie 4-speed since late 70s, early 80s. And lately what we've done, the transmissions we do the most with is the Tremec Magnum XL for the S197s and SN95s. And it's a 6-speed, it's a great transmission. For for the older cars for racing, what I have been doing is the Tremec TKO 5-speed is a lot lighter than the Magnum XL 6-speed. So in racing, you need lightness, and you never use the 6th gear because that's kind of like a highway cruising gear. So I was actually having Liberty build me special TKO 600s because a typical TKO 600 is really strong transmission. But if you're really pounding on them and going like crazy, you really don't like the shift of something like 6400, something like that. I can't remember the exact number. They just won't shift. So I have Liberty completely modify the TKO 6-speeds so that you can shift them at anything, and it's got a whole bunch of upgraded parts in them. However, here's the real news though: is Tremec has come out with a new 5-speed that I think is just the bomb. It's called the TKX. And it has all the features of the TKO 600 as far as strength. It takes like 600 horsepower, but they've really done their homework. It's actually a more compact transmission. It's not as big, which means if you're putting it into an older car, you don't have as much fitment issue with that. And also, they use the shifting mechanism out of the Magnum XL, so that you get really smooth shifts. So if you're thinking about that type of transmission, I seriously think you should take a look at the new Tremec TKX. It's better than all of them put together. So that's if you have any other question, Eric, just let me know. Steve Smith, is there a benefit to running side splitters, or are they purely cosmetic? If so, which ones would you recommend? Well, the answer is both. There are some cosmetic splitters out there, and there are some, like hardcore splitters. Are they necessary? I put side splitters in every race car I build. It's just I've been doing that since the 90s. And the reason for that in like professional racing, like Trans Am and things like that, we always use side splitters because as air flows back across the car, because if you think your rockers are kind of curved in at the bottom, well, all they do is they just suck air right under the car. And if you're sucking air under the car, you're building pressure, and that's not what you want. You want to reduce pressure to keep the car sucked down. So having the side splitters on there, keep the air from rolling under. And that's in the Speed Therapy Academy, we actually spend like 2 weeks just talking about aerodynamics. And I show a whole bunch of CFD graphics to kind of show how the air actually moves across the car. So if you really want to know more about that, sign up for the Academy. Because airflow is pretty interesting. And once you understand the basics, you understand it. So that's that. Let's see now, Todd. This is a big question, huge question. In fact, it takes up a quarter of a page. It says, how about a suspension setup for a Fox Mustang going to the Targa New Foundland, which is kind of a cool race, or a similar event with potholes, dips, and all the imperfections of real world roads, or that might be applicable to real back roads. Now, this is not to be blasphemy, but how BMW-ish can you make a live axle, or is IRS virtually required for that setup? BMW, capability of taking your grandma to the doctor on a bumpy road without knocking your fillings out, and a week later competing in Targa New Foundland. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but stock BMW will give you a decent crack at doing both of those. Okay, that's kind of an interesting question. First of all, you need to look at what a new Fox Mustang costs and what a BMW costs. I mean, there's a big difference in price. And the BMWs are great cars. They make great track cars. But to make them really good track cars, you still need to do a lot of modifications to them. You can take any car to the track and be I should say any car, but most cars to the track and be fairly competent. But there's some cars are better. No, the BMWs is one of those is better. Now, getting back to your Fox Mustang, here's my recommendation. The first thing you need to do is get the matrix system underneath there. The double cross steel frame connectors, the jacking rail, and the matrix brace. You got to stiffen that chassis up, because that's a big difference between a Fox Mustang and BMW. Is they've got a very rigid chassis. The more rigid the chassis, the better suspension is going to work. Actually, the better ride quality too. That's not step number one. If I was going to do something like that with a Fox, absolutely, I'd put the IRS in. I mean, the IRS just makes them a different car. And we've got a number of people are doing IRS cars these days with our suspension, to the point we're actually modifying the brackets. Now, when we do the geometry upgrade to the IRS carrier, we cut the great big ugly brackets off the back. We cut them off, and we put plates so we can bolt it straight to the frame rail, so it doesn't move. And we're actually adding another hole that will be compatible with not all Fox, but most Fox Mustangs. So get to the get the IRS, and then from there it's just a matter of springs and shocks. Now, we don't have as good a range of springs and shocks, coilover type springs and shocks for the Mustang as there are for the BMW, but we do have a good package, coilover front and rear. For actually SN95 is applicable to Fox, and we can set you up with. I can pick out some spring rates to make it. I mean, it'll handle pretty good, and that's what I'm going to talk about. Roy's car. That's what we have on Roy's car. He's got the AGS 3.5, and it's for the 197s, but it will fit a Fox. The K member, you need to do a little massaging around the frame. Little body things have to be attended to, but it will fit. So. Absolutely IRS. There's just no doubt about it. It'll be much better ride quality. The live axle is going to give you, IRS. So, okay, now let's get back to the subjects for today. I think we'll do a little tech talk on, I forgot, Carrie has to give me the sign. If you're just joining us, I'm Kenny Brown. This is Cars and Coffee, and where we talk about all kinds of cool car things. So if you really want to learn some good tech stuff, I'm sharing a lot of my experience over a lot of years in professional motorsports, and be sure to share it with your friends if you think they can get value out of what I'm talking about. And also, you can actually start a share party right now by clicking the little thing somewhere. I'm not really sure, but it's the little thing that you can click, and you can share this with your friends right now as we get into talking about cars. Oh, I missed one question. One question came in really late, like just before. This is from Tim Davis. It says, question pertains to S197. He has 07 Shelby GT 500, which came with a Ford Racing FR3 suspension from Shelby America. Will my AGS 4.0 front and rear grip kits work with the Ford Racing FR3 suspension? Thanks. Okay, I'm going to say, will it work? Yes. In the back, though, you're going to throw the rear sway bar away. Because with the rear grip kit, we don't use the rear sway bar. We take care of that with geometry. The thing, though, that you're going to be lacking is you're not going to have a lot of spring rate. And for those who've been watching for a while know I'm crazy about spring rates. I guess that goes back, in racing, we'll use like different springs for different track, and you change springs at a track to affect better handling. But I'm really big on big spring rates because it takes a lot of spring to make a Mustang turn. Now, I am guessing, I don't know the specific rates on that FR3 package, but I can tell you the experience I do have with Ford Racing springs is they're typically, I think GT500's got something with I'm gonna guess around a 150 front spring rate. And most of the Ford spring rates, off the shelf springs, are like, I think around 178 to 210. I'm guessing because that comes with shocks, it might be like 200 to 248 in that range, because Ford never gets very far off of OE in any of the parts they put out. And I know that for a fact because I worked with Ford for a lot of years. But they stay pretty close to OE. I mean, is it better than stock? Yes. Is it a full-on, super good track suspension? Falls a little short. So they're like, maybe I'm guessing 200, 240 variable rate is what I'm guessing. For any of my cars that I do, like for touring, sport touring, I use like a 350 front spring. Street Performance 400. That also is good for track days, for intermediate, and for novice up to intermediate. For intermediate with like street tires, 500, 550, depending on the car. And then for the serious track guys, 650 front. And you can say, God, that's a lot of spring. Well, on the my late son Paul's World Challenge Mustang and Pirelli Slicks, we'd be like 850 to 1,000, depending on the track. So we need a lot of spring to make the cars turn. We've been doing a lot of GT500s, and we've been using our JRZ RS1 package, which is a fabulous shock that it's custom built for me in the Netherlands. It's like premium race shock technology. And basic setup we've been running GT500s is 650 front, 400 rear. And I can also adjust the spring rates anywhere in there. But I mean, technically, what the rear grip kit and front grip kit does, it changes geometry. It improves the geometry that's on the car. So at the back, you throw the rear sway bar away, and you're going to have the car is going to hook up much, much better. You're going to be surprised the difference in how it drives in the front. It's going to turn a lot better because I do a lot to the front geometry to make the car turn. Remember, I'm all about, for track cars, late braking, get in there later than everybody else, quick rotation, make the car turn and get back to the gas and go. So it will work. To make it really work well, I'd suggest at some point thinking about a spring and shock upgrade. But as far as basically, yeah, put it on. It's going to make a world of difference in how the car drives, especially the back, because GT500s are super, super tail happy. We know that. And those that are in the know I got something new that's coming out for the rear. Because the Speed Therapy Society people got a preview. Actually, the Speed Therapy Academy guys got the first preview and first opportunity to buy the new rear suspension, and they bought out the first batch. We introduced it to Speed Therapy Society, and they bought out the first and most of the second batch. Okay, now we get down to what are we working on? Heading to the track. We're starting to get a lot of questions about track, and I might point out we have a number of our guys out on track this weekend. I mean, the weather's getting better. Track days are opening up. That whole last year we're trying to forget. And so we got the guys out tracking. Roy's down at the Corvette Museum, and we've got a couple other guys. Even we got some guys with our new rear suspension on track, which I'm waiting for their feedback, because the first group of 10 we sent to the Speed Therapy Academy guys because they're the most educated. They've been through the academy. They know how everything works, and I'm looking for their feedback so we can. Every time we send a batch out, we're looking for feedback from people, because this is brand new. It's a completely different from anything else. So anyway, heading to the track, there's a couple of things.
That was from Angie Parrish, is the one that recommended.
Angie, that's right. Angie Parrish asked about this last week, and I said we'll talk about it this week. Okay, the first thing you want to do before you even go is I've got this handy dandy checklist. Now this covers a variety of cars. I actually developed this when I was doing open wheel, like Formula Fords and Formula Atlanta cars. I modified it some for the door cars, but it's still a basic thing, and it's a checklist. And I recommend before you go anywhere, you get in this checklist, and you just make sure the car is safe and ready to go. I mean, it's safety is the biggest thing, and going through checking everything, the belts, the ball joints, all that sort of thing, checking it off, then it's good. That's the first thing you do.
It's available only on Speed Therapy.
Oh yeah, you can actually download this from Speed Therapy Society in this resource. Is that what it's called? In the resource section, you can download that. And then from there, you need to be sure you got the right brake pads and especially brake fluid. No matter when you bled your brakes last, bleed them again with high temperature fluid if you're going to the track. We've switched over to bare fluid in the last 6 months or so, because they've come out with a fluid that's got super high dry boiling point. It is over 600, and a lot of them that say 600 really aren't 600. So get some high temperature brake fluid in there. Be sure you've got good brake pads. Remember, there's street pads for the street and track pads for the track, and never the twain shall meet, except there are some compounds in there that you can go both ways, but it's not really the best solution. And remember that you want to know about brake pads. We've got great brake pad selection, and the ones we're using for our track guys now, we can actually get them pre-bedded. So for track pads, you don't have to wait a whole session bedding in your brake pads. And I've got like 20 different compounds. I can choose a compound for you, however you're doing. So if you need fresh brake pads, let us know. The G-locks we're using are fabulous. They're really easy on rotors, and they work really good. Good life.
It's a 15-minute consult schedule.
Oh yeah, it does take. You need to schedule a 15-minute consult, and which everybody knows that you need a tech question answered. Schedule a 15-minute consult with me. You need to know about brake pads. Schedule a 15-minute consult. We'll go through, figure out what's going to be best for you.
There's a link in the comments.
What?
There's a link in the comments for this 15 minutes.
Oh, she's mumbling and I can't hear her. But she's pointing to something, so I'm guessing that you can, somewhere in there, you can sign up for it. Okay, now while you're at the track, this is kind of important. This is Cars and Coffee, remember. And I've been rushing around, I haven't had this, only my second cup of coffee, which is pretty unusual for me. Okay, now here's the thing you can do at the track, and we'll go over this more in the speed therapy, in the 3-day workshop, but we'll really dive into it in the Speed Therapy Academy. But at the track, what you can do at the track to make your car faster? Well, there's very few things that you can adjust at the track that improve your car quickly and easily. The biggest thing is tire pressures. Tire pressures are everything. I spend the entire first morning of every track weekend working on my tire pressures because I will not make any other adjustment, the shocks, the suspension, geometry, nothing until I get those tire pressures right. Because you need all that tire on the ground, and if you don't have, if you had too much air or too little air, it might feel like it gives you a push in the front end. And if you start adjusting things like shocks or sway bars, you're not going to make it better. You're probably going to make it worse. So you need to get that tire pressures right. How do you do that? The tools. Now I'm going to show you some professional grade tools. This is like pressure. This goes down to 1/10 of a pound. And I can tell you that when I work with IndyCar teams, they set their tire pressure to 1/10 of a pound. So that's at the professional level. Now, what we have for our people is this handy dandy tire pressure gauge. And it's also, you see this little button here? That's really important because the whole idea is you overfill your tire, and then you can use this button to bleed it down to get the exact tire pressure you're looking for. And of course, it's got a nozzle. Actually, it comes with a little air nozzle too. So that's how you actually set your tire pressure, is with a tire pressure gauge. But how do you know what to set it at? Okay, I'll go backwards first. Now, I'll show this is, I'll take the protective covering off, the child-proof covering. This is I was going to see if I could pull up some temperatures, but it's all been erased. This is another professional type tool. And there's your little probe, and that goes into the tire, outside, middle, inside. And you record those on a sheet, or with one of these, it records automatically all 4 corners, and you can put it into memory, and it'll save it. But if you don't have, one of these, that's the next best thing. One of these. This little probe, you see on. Nice big letters. I like nice big letters. They're easy to see, numbers. So that's on centigrade. Switch over to Fahrenheit. Okay, I guess my finger's 88 degrees right now. Again, you outside, center, inside. And what you're shooting for is to get the pressures uniform across the tire. Now, you rarely will be able to get perfect temperatures right across. That rarely happens. But if you don't have one of the handy dandy, like professional grade temperature readers, and this is our tire temperature sheet that I've used for I don't know how many years. And this comes with the kit. Also, I think through the end of the month, or when?
Through the end of April.
Through the end of April. If you order anything, just look down here, put the code in tire temp, and you get a free pad of tire temperature sheets. And I record this right left front, all around the car. And what I'll do is I'll put the starting pressure, the cold pressure. I'll do a tire temperature run, and then I'll make an adjustment based on what the temperatures say. Write down the adjustment, and then the next time I go out, we'll do the next set of temperatures right underneath there to see what the adjustment did, and keep working it through until I get the right pressures. And the thing what we're looking for is you never get uniform across except with some race cars. It's say the way to balance it. Let's say you've got 100 degrees on the inside and 120 degrees on the outside. What you want that middle temperature to be is 110. That way you've got, you know that your temperatures are balanced and your pressures are balanced. So that's kind of what we're looking for, to get as close to that as possible. Again, we'll go into that more in the workshop and deeper into it in the academy. So, okay, we've got down through that. Let's see.
Oh, I thought you were showing that today.
No, I just, I got that. Another thing that you actually positively have to have, a torque wrench. Now, I'm going to give you my torque wrench secret. I've got some pretty darn expensive snap-on torque wrenches. I never, ever, ever take them to the track. What I do is I go down to Harbor Freight and I get one of their torque wrenches. They're on sale periodically, and that's what I use for a couple of reasons. Torque wrenches have a bad habit of getting dropped, kicked, run over, lost, borrowed, and never come back. That's why I don't take my good ones. You get an inexpensive torque wrench, and these are close enough for torquing wheels. These are plenty close enough, and have a lifetime warranty. So if they ever break, you just take them back to Harbor Freight and get yourself a new one. That just happened to be sitting up here, and Carrie thought I should talk about it, so I did. That's my little secret on torque wrenches for the track. I never take my good ones. Always take the inexpensive ones because they're going to be close enough for tires or for wheels. And another little trick is if you're taking wheels off and on a lot, put just a teeny bit of anti-seize on the threads of the studs. That'll just make getting the wheels on and off a lot easier, and you're not going to tear up the threads either on the studs or on the lugs, and you're going to get better torque value. Because when you're taking them on and off, you got metal against metal, and metal against metal is not a smooth thing. I mean, there's friction. And taking them on and off a lot, you kind of chew them up. So a little bit of anti-seize. If you don't have a little anti-seize, just a couple of drops of thicker oil, just something on there that will make the nuts going on easier. Another little trick. That'll make your studs last longer and your nuts last longer. Okay, let's see. We've set up for the track. We've talked about tire temperatures. So what are we going to talk about next? Yeah.
Read your screen.
Read my screen. What's Kenny working on? Finished prepping 99 Kenny Brown CSR-R Cobra for competition in NASA AIX. That's Roy's car on the dyno. We worked with Tony the Tuner. You've heard us talk about Tony the Tuner remotely to get that kind of tuned. We had somebody tune it last year that I really wasn't happy with the tune. It is like tailpipes were black and they shouldn't be. So we got air fuel right at about 12 and looking good. I should have put the dyno sheets, but Carol, why don't you grab a dyno sheet off my desk? The power is so linear. It's totally amazing. And it actually was pulling, it's pulling like a freight train. Here we go. Clever. I'll show you what the dyno ended up looking like. You can see now across the bottom, that's our air-fuel ratio, and that is pretty darn good. And then on the top, look how smooth and linear that motor pulls. And we stopped it at 7,300, and it was still pulling. So this will probably make power well over 7,500, even up to 8, because it's a like Series 1 or Gen 1 Daytona Prototype motor, which we'll get into. But we're pretty happy with that. It came up with about we got it's about 440 at the rear wheels, which means we're about 510 to 515 flywheel. And going back to the original Daytona prototypes, and I will show you that here in a minute, the it wasn't Ipswich, it was Grand Am was running that, and they had for the Daytona Prototypes 500 horsepower was it. You had to, that it was a limit of 500 horsepower. You couldn't go over that. So seeing this is kind of like a Gen 1 motor at 510, 515, we're right in the ballpark where they started. So without further ado, let's look at a little bit about Roy's car.
Roy's racing this weekend.
Roy's racing this weekend. Okay. Okay. My assistant, there we go. That's Roy's car. That's actually, Roy's car has improved a lot since then. It's got more aero now. It's got wing. It's got big fender flares because we're running a 315 front and a 335 rear. So it's got plenty of tire on the ground on Ford's line, 3-piece wheels, which you've heard me talk about Ford's line. You want the best wheel available, it's Ford's line. So there's another good shot. I mean, that's such a sweet little car. That's such a sweet little car. Ringing my bell. Okay, when we talk about Daytona Prototype, this is what the Daytona Prototypes were. I can't remember the years. Somebody out there might, but it goes back a ways. And that's what a Roush Yates Daytona Prototype engine looks like. And that's the last. That's like the last generation before they stopped using those motors. And that has the bigger heads. It's got the carbon intake manifold. I mean, that's pretty cool. I originally wanted to put the whole engine into Roy's car, but we ran into a couple of problems. You can see the intake manifold sits pretty high, and it's pointing the wrong way. That can flip around to go to the front, but at the same token, we had to make some big modifications to Roy's hood, and we really didn't want to go that far. Plus, we'd had to put a standalone fuel injection system on there, and at the time, we wanted to kind of keep it as simple as possible because it's already a stupid expensive motor. So that's the last generation. I was actually going to put the Daytona Prototype heads and my FR500 magnesium intake manifold on, except when we set the FR500 on the heads, like the ports didn't match up. The ports are much bigger in a different place. So we had to scrap that idea and go back and use my Prototype FR500 heads, which is exactly what the first generation of the Daytona Prototype engines were. And seeing as they were 500 horse and we were like 510, 515, it's we're right there with Gen 1. Okay, this is kind of what it looks like all in pieces. And there's I won't get into all. We've had a lot of trick stuff inside this motor. I mean, guys at Roush Yates really know what they're doing. I won't share all of them with you, but I will share a little. This is the block. It's a 5-liter block. 4.6 base. It's a 5-liter block, but it's not like any other 5-liter block that we've worked on. You can see it's got extra ribbing. It's got a whole bunch of extra bosses to bolt things onto it, like dry sumps. In fact, this is a dry sump motor. There isn't even a provision for an oil pump on the crank. But it's like super heavy duty. I was really impressed with just how nice the block was. And here's one little trick that I'll share with you. This is a crankshaft, and you can see that the counterweight on the crankshaft has been shortened. If you look at it where it used to be and where it is now, there's a lot of it's not there. Plus, it's been totally polished and super smooth. That's just one of the really cool things we found inside the motor. And these are DP heads. I mean, you can just imagine how much air you can get through those. And yeah, that'll flow a lot of air. And these are the super lumpy, bumpy cams I had Comp grind up for us. These are road race cams, and they're pretty hot cams. And you can tell they look like eggs. They don't look like a normal camshaft. Okay, there's talking about my GT500, not GT500, FR500 intake. That's the FR500 magnesium intake. Now, originally that had it had like the little flapper plates and had long runners, short runners. And what we did is we actually, the bottom of the manifold comes apart. So we took that off, put a plate in there, and we blocked that off. So there's no long runners, just short runners. And we took the little butterflies out. So that's just a straight shot into the cylinder head. I mean, that's a pretty cool intake manifold. Here, we'll go through a little bit what's in Roy's car, just so you know. Obviously, full competition cage, strut tower brace, got the matrix system, jacking rails, rear shock tower brace is actually sort of welded in. And then we've got the AGS 3.5 suspension with hard mount IRS carrier in the back that's had all the geometry upgrades. I didn't finish reading. Three-piece forge line wheels, 315s front, 335s the back. And for brakes, he's got the totally awesome Kenny Brown, that's me, Pro 4R race brakes, which are really amazing. I mean, you want a good set of race brakes without breaking the bank, this is it. I mean, especially considering it's a 4-piston, it's lighter, it's got all kinds of super features, and it takes the same pad profile as our 6-piston race calipers, except the pad's an inch thick, which is pretty cool for the front. Okay, we went too far. Okay, here's AGS 3.5. I mean, on the left, you're going to see the front grip kit, which is the K-member, control arms, front sway bar, and also caster plus is shown in there, which is, caster is incredibly important in my geometry. So caster plus we've got them as the Fox and SA95. And what I did is I eliminated the caster adjustment on those plates, or camber caster adjustment. So by eliminating a caster adjustment, I actually pick up at least another half a degree of positive caster, which is what I like. And then the right is the AGS 3.5. That's the rear IRS with a modified carrier, lower control arms, upper control arms, forward torque brace, aluminum diff bushings, and the rear steer kit. And then when we do the geometry upgrade, we take all the rear steer out of the car. That's something if you've been following me with the IRS cars that we found. Actually discovered it while doing testing FR500s down at Road Atlanta with Ford Racing. I got to a certain, in the last corner down the back of the straightaway, last right-hander, got to a certain point of the corner, every single time the car would get loose. Went back and looked, did the geometry, and sure enough, when you get to a certain point, it rolled both rear wheels steer the wrong way. So with the basic rear steer kit, we take about half of that rear steer out, roll steer out, and with the geometry modification of the carrier, we take all of it out. So now the big question is, see if anybody can answer this. What's the difference between AGS 3.5 for the street, for the track, or for racing? See who can answer that. I'm going to give you time to think about it. And there's the Pro 4R brakes that I was talking about. It's a massive caliper, but it's really light. And you can see that it's a full race type caliper. It takes like 30 seconds to change brake pads. And wouldn't you love to be able to change brake pads in 30 seconds? Okay, so more content. This is like, I'm getting into spring, so I've been like sneezing and coughing all morning. Even though there's not that many things blooming yet, I think my body's just kind of warming up knowing spring is coming. For the engine, of course, it's a modified Daytona Prototype, but basically a Series 1 dry sump. Aero, we got the full aero package. We got fender flares, wheel wickers, racing hood, vented racing hood, rear wing, and side splitters. Remember we talked about side splitters earlier? And of course, it's got the triple pass radiator, which is necessary for that kind of competition. It's got the rear IRS rear diff cooler. If you've got an IRS car and plan on doing track days, you absolutely have to have the rear diff cooler. The reason is when you've got a live axle car, you've got all that massive steel to absorb and expel heat. Well, with IRS, you get this tiny little aluminum pumpkin that there's no way to get heat out, so they overheat pretty quickly. And then we also, because this is a race car, we also have put a competition 2-pass oil cooler on it. And then take weight out, we put Lexan windows. Of course, it's got race seat and harness, and there's a whole bunch of extra little tweaks that I'm not going to tell you about. That's only Roy's car and I know about. Of course, Kurt knows about them too. Okay.
And Roy's kind of been with us.
Yeah, Roy's built this car over 6 years maybe. It's like after every season, it comes to us and he makes the next upgrade, next upgrade, next upgrade. Now, this year, it kind of came to us, kind of not for an upgrade, but to fix the engine. At I think the second last race of the season, the first lap, the first lap is where most people do stupid things. Not Roy. Roy was good. He was on course. Somebody 2 cars back totally blew it, missed their braking point, or whatever, and careened in the car in front of him. And that car caught Roy in the right rear corner panel and spun him around. And Roy happened so fast, Roy didn't get the clutch in soon enough, and the motor actually went backwards, which is a pretty good feat. And because of that, the secondary timing chain broke, and of course, bent all the valves. So we had to go back and kind of rebuild the right side of the motor and get them ready to go again. But then we still did a bunch of little upgrades. We always do a bunch of little upgrades. It's just the little things that really make a difference. So I got through Roy's car. I got through everything. Upcoming Transform Driving Experience Workshop, April 6th through 8th. There's a link to register because it's one of the events that we have to register for. And so with that, I think, how are we doing on questions?
What are you going to talk about in the 3-day Transform Driving Experience Workshop?
I didn't bring my crib notes.
Okay.
But it's, we're going to go through, chassis, suspension, wheel starts, brakes, all the things that, all my little tricks that you get a little preview of my little tricks. That if you want to really improve your experience, the best way to improve your driving experience is to improve your car. Plain and simple. I mean, it's like you need to be like part of the car needs to be part of you. And the closer that relationship gets, the better it is, the more fun you have, and the better driving experience you have. So we're going to talk about a bunch of different things because I've got my crib notes. There's so many things I have to have notes. How about that? That's my backup. Okay, so have we got some? Did Joe ever say anything about us as
Yes,
water temperature?
Mm-hmm. So let me get back to Joe's question. So Joe said, on his last trip to Eagles Canyons, my oil temperatures never got over 260 degrees after installing a 3-way pass radiator in the hood vents, and that's in Texas.
Yeah, so
that's pretty good.
That's a live testament to our triple pass radiator. We've had like Mark Hasselberg. Up in Wisconsin, he had early GT 350s, and he constantly was overheating on track. Put the triple pass radiator in, it took like almost 30 degrees of water temperature out with his car on track. So if you're doing track days, I highly recommend our triple pass radiator. It's something we developed a long time ago with our supplier. That's become very popular. And what I mean by triple pass is like a normal radiator. It comes in on the top on the passenger side and flows across and out the bottom on the driver's side. And water is a fluid. It'll take the path of least resistance, so most of it's going to flow through the middle, and you're going to get little pockets that get hot. With the triple pass, it goes in the top, it runs across, makes a U-turn, runs back across, makes another U-turn, runs back across again. So it's great exposure between the fluid or water and the air. And also we use some pretty unique fins. They're a little bit, they're smaller, but we get like 70 or 18% more surface area than a normal 3-core radiator. So there's a testament to how good they work.
And then Joe had another, I think this is just a comment. He says, oil balance lines are installed on the FP350S and the Mustang GT4 cars. I hear that the heads have a connection that would accommodate the lines.
Man, if it's there, I'd go ahead and do it. Like I say, I know on the Marauders, we had to connect the heads for cooling for water. But if there's a way to do it and the provisions are there, it sounds like if they're doing it on the race cars, it sounds like something that you should consider for your track car.
Okay, and Chris Mellitu has a comment. He said this is regarding the gentleman that was wondering how the FR3 Shelby suspension compared to the Kenny Brown suspension. And Chris says he had the FR3 on his 2010 Shelby, and there's no comparison with Kenny's suspension, absolutely none. So that was nice, Chris.
Chris's car is in for a tune-up now.
Yeah.
He's getting a new rear suspension.
Yeah. Let's see. Steve Smith. Here, the next one is Roy Wallace. What would those spring rates convert coilovers? My ST5 NASA 2003 V6 is currently 400 front, 275 rear, which is competitive. would like to lessen the understeer that seems to be.
Okay, say that again. What kind of car is it?
It says my ST5 NASA 2003 V6.
Okay.
Currently it has 400 front springs, 275-pound rears, and
This is a 197 or a Fox?
2003.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's a 95.
Yeah. Would like to lessen the understeer that it seems to have.
I mean, if my front suspension is legal, I do that because there's some geometry in there that really helps the car turn. I mean, outside of that is 400-pound springs in the front.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got adjustable shocks, it depends. Now, here's the thing: when people ask me questions, and you can follow this up with me in a 15-minute. The first thing I ask is, what are the tire pressures? Maybe we talked about that. I mean, I can't answer a question unless I know what the tire pressure temperatures are. And from there, then I can make some judgments. And then the next question is going to be, does it understeer at turn in, mid corner, or corner exit? Because each one of those would take a different remedy to try to take the understeer out. So, I mean, I think you need to set up a 15-minute with me, and we'll kind of talk through that a little bit more. But I really need to know what your tire temperatures are, because it could be just tire pressure. It could be as simple as tire pressure.
And Roy Wallace has a comment. Also, he says that the Carroll Smith books have a really neat trackside tuning guide for oval track. Anyone have a similar book for road racing?
Actually, we talk about that. In the Speed Therapy Academy.
Go in quite detail.
And go into quite a bit of detail. We convert that. I converted from open wheel cars, because that's what I used in the 70s when I was racing. That's what I used. I can kind of convert that for Mustangs, for production cars. And that actually, toward the end of the course, we talk about that after we learn about everything else that makes a car go.
Okay, and Andrew Thompson asks, Kenny said the 110 degrees across the tire, is that an arbitrary number or one that I can shoot for?
No, I just pulled that out because it's easy for me to take 100 and 120 and come up with 110. No, it's going to be, your tire temperatures are going to vary driver to driver, day to day, track to track, session to session even. So it's there's nothing arbitrary about that. It's like I just picked those numbers because it's easy to divide and add.
And so Brad also adds an interesting comment. He says, always remember that tire temperature bleeds off quicker than pressure. So always take the temperatures before you take the pressures.
That's a good point. And what I typically do along those lines is in the first session, I'll go out and I'll get the car warmed up and start driving. Just as soon as I feel the tires not grip as much, I'll zip into the pits. We'll do a quick temperature check, and then I'll say, okay, I want air in here, air out there, and adjust it away I go again. But if you're doing tire temperatures, always, if it's a right-hand track, clockwise track, it's always left front first, left rear second, right front third, right rear fourth. Because you're asking each one of those tires to do a different job. You're going to have different temperatures and different pressures in each. But yeah, I mean, you always want to check the temperatures first, because that's how you set your pressures. And
Cliff Glidden says, what are the indications that a car on track is too stiffly sprung?
When it bounces all over the place and you can't control it. I mean, and a lot depends on the shocks. I mean, if you've got some really stiff springs and some like race shocks, you're not really going to notice much. Because like race shocks, like I say, race shocks are 850 to 1,000 with motorsport shocks. Too stiffly sprung, I mean, it's just a car would bounce. And you have to have a lot of rebound in your shock absorber to control the bounce.
Okay, and then Calvin Goring has a question. Do you put fire suppression systems in any of your track cars? If so, do you have a preferred extinguishing agent?
Basically for track cars, we don't. Race cars, absolutely. We haven't really built a new race car for a while. We've been working on a lot of people's existing race cars. I think Halon, if Halon's still around, that's what we used to use the most of. It's inert gas, it's heavy, it kills fire. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good ones out there.
Okay.
We do often, for a track car, put a fire extinguisher in there, though. And more times than not, it's for peace of mind. It has to be within the reach of the driver.
And then we also have Chuck Foley he's involved with the Great Mustang Roundup on September 3rd through the 5th. So we'll be completing versus Moto Show. Please click the image above the link to get registered. So that's a really good event. So you may want to attend that. That's a national show registration. If you've been involved with MCA and national shows, you know the Oklahoma Mustang Club has hosted many of the national shows. So
Yeah, listen, the Oklahoma, I know the Oklahoma Shelby Club is absolutely awesome. They put on fantastic events. We've been to a number of them at Hallett. So the guys down in Oklahoma are Mustang people, and they're good people, and they know what they're doing.
And I think that is it for the questions we have. This is last call for questions. We're going to talk a little bit more about the speed or the Transform Your Driving Experience workshop, because it is starts not this next week, but the following week on Tuesday, April 6th.
This Tuesday to next Tuesday.
Yeah. And so this is a time for you to get registered. There you can find a link in the comments here, or you can go on to kennybrown.com and find a link to register, and you can go to Speed Therapy Society or the Kenny Brown Performance Facebook page, and you'll find a link as well. It's well worth your time. It's 3 days, and Kenny shares a ton of information.
Not nearly as much information as we do in the academy.
No, but it's
I do try to give you a good basis to work from. It's just to help you get along, and then for the people that really want to know more, that want to be, when they show up to the track, they want to be like the pros from Dover. That's an expression that we had when I was a kid back east. The academy really sets you up to be like the guy at the track.
We've had a number of people. We've done these Transform Your Driving Experience in the past. We've done a 5-day one, and I think this will be our third one. And we've had people attend it a second time because they didn't catch all the information that Kenny shared. So it's well worth your time.
Yeah, I remember when I get wound up too, you got to pay attention. Because when I get wound up talking tech, I just go.
So anyway,
you probably know that by now.
It's fun. It's really fun. Again, you can find the link in the comments or on kennybrown.com. Okay, here's another question coming in. Jason Rowe, what brakes would be better for an autocross car? Cross-drilled and slotted rotors or blank rotors? Building my first car.
Neither one. Only slotted rotors. That's all we ever use. It's just slotted rotors. No cross-drilled, no holes. For some very good reasons. If there's holes, there's not surface area, which means you're giving up a lot of surface area by putting a lot of holes in there. Secondly, unconditionally, absolutely 100% guarantee they will crack at the hole. If they get hot, drilled rotors will crack at the holes. You need slotted, the flat rotors are no good because they don't do two important things that a slotted rotor does. Slotted rotor, first of all, the slots help get rid of brake dust. They help expel brake dust. More importantly, they let the gas out that builds up. And with a brake pad under high temperature, you're going to get gas build up at the back edge of the pad. Back when we were doing the Celine cars, we had to run flat rotors and stock calipers. And when we did a brake change in the middle of the night, the brake pads looked like a wedge. The fronts were down to the metal, and there was still a whole bunch of pad in the back. That's because the gas builds up. The slotted rotors help get rid of gas. But I'll take it one step further. What you really need is our two-piece slotted rotors. And the reason I say that is it's for a number of reasons. Number one, they're really good slotted rotors. Secondly, they cool much better than just a plain rotor that's got slots in it. A one-piece rotor, they cool a lot better than that, a whole bunch better than that. And because it's two-piece, the center section is aluminum, it doesn't transfer as much heat from the outer ring of the rotor into the wheel bearings or into the wheels. So two-piece slotted rotors, we've got them for most cars. Highly recommend that.
And Jason, I think going through Kenny's Transform Your Driving Experience workshop would be really beneficial. Since you're new, you'll learn a lot. You'll pick up speed past other people. So.
Yeah, and then getting some brake pads that are not. The other thing about like doing autocross is you don't want to have too aggressive of a brake pad. If you've got like a track pad and try to do like a parking lot race, you're just not going to get them up to temperature. You have to get them up to the temperature you need for them to work. So that's something else. If you want some direction on that, I can work with you.
And we have a very observant Cars and Coffee participating. They're asking, did we change the dates of the workshop?
Yes.
And we changed it because our lovely Bridget is an integral part of that, and she took a little vacation. So she was in Smokies of the Mountains, actually. So we delayed it one more week so we could have her present and helping us. So it is, again, March 6th through the 8th.
Very observant.
7 p.m. Yeah.
Okay, he should get you should get one of these just for being observant.
Yeah, just email info@kennybrown.com and we'll get you one. Let's see. And then next week on Cars and Coffee, we are doing a encore presentation of one of your Cars and Coffee.
Oh, that's right.
And
next week is encore.
And there will be a great overview of the upcoming 3-day workshop.
Okay. Yeah, every now and again, I just need to take some time and see. The next weekend is Easter. We thought that would be a good time so we can don't have to prepare and can spend some time with grandkids. Who, as you know, kids and Easter kind of go together like peanut butter and jelly.
Okay.
So, okay, with that, thanks everybody for being here. I hope you learned something. Again, share it with your friends. If you're one of the people that watch the reruns, I'm glad you could join us in the rerun. Again, I hope you learn a lot, and I will see you. Well, my image will see you next week, but I will see you in 2 weeks, and in 2 weeks, we're going to have the Transformative Driving Experience workshop. So it's like 70 degrees here and sunny in Indianapolis. Great day to get out and drive. I hope it's nice where you are.